Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Post Game. I'm Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. And if I sound a little bit peppier than I had the last few weeks, well, it's not 1 o'clock in the morning. That's a good start. And secondly, the Pittsburgh Steelers finally won a game at Heinz Field in a dominating fashion, 41-17. They beat the Atlanta Falcons. I bring on my co-host, Lance Williams. Lance, what are your thoughts on the game today?
Jeff, man, you are talking fast. You are peppy, man.
I am. I'm excited.
You must have had a supplement, some collagen or something, PX29 or something, X25, something. You had a supplement or something today. Whoa! Just excited, Jeff. I see ya. Hey, look at Jeff. Listeners, look at Jeff. Jeff is pearly whites, excited. He's got that sparkle in his eye. And you know what brings all that around? Is a Steeler victory. And listeners, that was the best the Steelers played this year. That was better than the Tampa Bay team. This was a high-powered offense that they really shut down. They played pretty well in all three phases, and they finally defended home field. And so, you know, Steeler fans can go to work on Monday and have a great rest of their Sunday and feel pretty frisky and maybe even puff their chest out just a bit.
Yeah, but the one thing I don't want to hear, and you're already hearing it from some of the beat writers that write about the Steelers every week, is, are the Steelers back, quote unquote? We don't know, but the Falcons were bad. Like, that's what they're saying. And it's like, you know what? The defense might be horrible. The Falcons' defense is not good. No one's suggesting that it is. But at the same time, that is a legit top 5 offense there. And the Steelers' defense held them to 17 points. And they weren't really helped out too much at the end of the first quarter by their offense. So I don't want to hear the excuse making of, well, the Falcons are bad. Yeah, their record is bad, but I don't think that's a bad football team. Lance, you agree or disagree?
That's a very good offense. I mean, listeners, if you listen to the previous program, I rattled off some very good statistics. I mean, it's a top 6 scoring offense, scoring 29 points a game. They were a top 3 third down offense. I mean, it's a very good offense. You have weapons all around. You have a top 7, top 10 quarterback in Matty Ryan. You have Julio Jones, arguably the best wide receiver in football. You have Sanu, you have Ridley, you have 2 outstanding backs in Freeman and Coleman. That's an outstanding offense, and they played really well. And they played much better than I expected. I thought they were going to get lit up. Vegas thought they were going to get lit up. Everybody thought they were going to get lit up. But you know what matters most? That it doesn't matter to them. And they went out and executed, and they played solid football. But, Jeff, you know what the narratives are. I mean, we do shows. You know, you manage a site. I mean, you know what drives it, so you know what the narrative is. If they had lost, fire Tomlin. If they win, are they back? Well, let me just answer the question, are they back? No. Until you stack wins, you're not back.
Okay, well, that's a perfect segue. I said, before we get into the numbers and start talking about statistics, winners, losers, and all that stuff, what would it take for you, and for those that might be first-time listeners to the show, Lance is not a very optimistic Steeler fan. What would it take for you to kind of get on board and say, you know what, this team's turning the corner. They're starting to look like what we thought they were going to be, not to steal from Denny Green.
They need to win the next 3 games, period. They have 3 division games. They need to beat Cincinnati, Cleveland, and Baltimore. They need to win those 3 games. They win those 3 games and stack those wins, they're back. Because those are critical. If they don't fare well in those next 3 games, they're not going to win a division and they're not going to go to the playoffs. They need to play some really good football against Cincinnati. If they beat Cincinnati, the ticker on the meter will be moving towards the more positive for me. Then if they could stack that, you know, coming off a bye week, coming back, beating the Browns, beating the Ravens, then I'm all the way in. That this team is a different football team. Win these next 4 games, and I'm on. I'm on board with it.
Yeah. I said that if they can win in a fashion similar to the way they won today in Cincinnati next week, and then they go into the bye week, and who knows if Le'Veon Bell reports during that time or not, but I definitely think the arrow would be pointing up big time for the Steelers. And so this was a good start. This is a must-win game. I don't care what anyone says. You could not lose this game and fall to 1-3-1. Instead, they win. They're 2-2-1. As they head into Cincinnati next week. Cincinnati is 4-1 after they beat the Dolphins, who blew a 17-point lead in Cincinnati today. Quick AFC North news around the AFC North. The Cleveland Browns came back and beat the Baltimore Ravens in overtime, 12-9, in case you're following us live on YouTube. And so now all of a sudden it's a kind of a logjam in the AFC North. Baltimore's 3-2, Cincinnati's obviously 4-1, and both the Browns and the Steelers are 2-1. So it's going to be interesting. It is worth noting that the Steelers have all of their division games wrapped up by week 9, except for the week 17 game against Cincinnati, which is at home against the Cincinnati Bengals. So
can I make one comment on that scheduling? That's really weird. It's really weird that you have 3 division games stacked back to back like that. I don't think I've seen that in years. I mean, listeners, if you're out there and you one of you guys or one of you ladies out there can search the record, I just think that's pretty odd. I mean, have you seen that typically where you have this many front loaded division games? It seems really weird.
no, I can't recall a time. The only thing that's equally strange that has happened to the Steelers were a couple years ago when they had a lot of division games against the same opponent, like within. I remember they played the Ravens one week, they had a week off, and they played them again, and it was just really strange how it all kind of managed itself out. But just strange. But you know what? Let's get into this win because it was a big win. I don't care what anyone says, and it was a tale of two halves in a lot of different ways. I guess if I'm looking at concerns here, because Lance, you and I can sit here and we can talk about this, that, and the other. And James Conner had a tremendous performance, and Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown heated up in the second half. My concern is that this offense, which we have already identified, has to be the engine that drives this train, so to speak. They still have quarters, or in this game, a quarter where they completely disappear. In this game, it was the second quarter. They failed to score any points, whereas the defense gave up 10. And all of a sudden, a 13-0 lead turned to 13-10 going into the half. Now, there should be a little asterisk there that Ben Roethlisberger's, I'm trying to think of an adjective that is not a curse word here, horrible interception to end the first half would have changed that. But still, Lance, you agree that this offense, it started to find some consistency, but it's hardly where it needs to be.
I would agree. I mean, they don't have much margin for error. And we can see, and although the time of possession was pretty even, it was almost 30 minutes. It was eerily even. They just have to continue to move the football and convert third downs. Now, you may not always score on every drive. We realize that. But 3 and outs, they can't have 3 and outs. And it's okay if you have a 3 and out, but you want the defense to stop you. You can't have 3 and outs where the quarterback is just inaccurate in spots. And we've seen that with Ben Roethlisberger this year, is that in spots in games, it seems as if he will lose rhythm and his accuracy will suffer. I mean, he just has to get better. That interception, and I hate to use hyperbole, but that interception might have been the worst decisions he's made in the last 5 years. That's unacceptable for a quarterback of his level. You just cannot do that. You have to live to see another day and score points. But at times, his accuracy wanes in games. I don't know if it's weird because he can get hot and get cold within a drive. And it's really weird. And I don't think I've seen that out of Ben. But I think we're starting to see some baby steps moving in a positive direction, especially with the ball that he threw to AB for the touchdown to really cement this game. That was a great throw. And maybe AB and Ben are starting to get a bit more in sync. But with this offense, with this defense, that offense has to stay in sync. It has to stay hot. And it has to play this time of possession clock game. And even if you don't score, you have to convert at least 1 third down every drive. So at least you're running 7-play drives consistently.
I agree. And the offense came out, and I thought they looked very sharp in the first quarter. Moved the ball down the field, scoring 2 touchdowns. Chris Boswell missed another point after, which, it haunts you. It absolutely haunts you, but it didn't tonight, or today, I should say. Let's go over some statistics here for those that might have missed the game or maybe just didn't realize it. Ben Roethlisberger finishes his day 19 of 29, 250 yards, averaging 8.6 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 awful interception. He did not get sacked, folks, and finishes with a 112.7 rating. Lance, on a scale from 1 to 4, what grade, 4 being the best, what would you give Roethlisberger's day?
A 3. The interception makes it not be a 4. The interception was terrible. If he doesn't throw that interception, it's probably a 3.5, given that he went cold in that quarter. But with that interception in the red zone, that's terrible. I'm going to give him a solid 3.
Okay, I agree. I was even going to go 2.75 if we're doing like figure skating here. Um, I just can't get over how, people a lot of times ask, well, who is it? Is it Roethlisberger? Or is it Brown? Is Brown getting open? Brown's getting open. If you have NFL Game Pass, watch the All 22 and just watch Antonio Brown, and he's getting open. Roethlisberger's either going somewhere else, which is fine if it's an open option, or he is absolutely missing him, and he missed him a lot in the first half. But they kind of rectified the situation. Now the running game, James Conner finishes with 21 carries, 110 yards, averaging 5.2 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, and a long of 30 yards. Roethlisberger, second leading rusher with 2 carries for 16 yards. What was your opinions on James Conner? How would you grade him out?
Steeler fans, you might think what I'm going to say is blasphemous. Connor gets a 4 out of 4. Got to secure the football in the red zone. Work on that, young man. What more do you think a running back is going to give them than what James Conner gave them today? 21 of 110, 5.2, long of 32 touchdowns. The fat guy that is sweating gravy right now, that is not talking to the coaching staff and announcing when he's going to come back, but is telling the media, and by the way, in a famous Jay-Z line in the takeover, we don't believe you. You need more people. I don't believe anything that guy says. What do you guys think Le'Veon Bell is going to give you that James Conner is not? 21 of 110, 5.2, 30-yard long run, 2 TDs, 4 targets, 4 receptions for 75 yards. That's 185 yards from scrimmage. And the long catch was 29 yards. Do they need Le'Veon? Riddle me this, Jeff. Do they need Le'Veon? If they get James Conner involved, do they need Le'Veon? Do they need the jet ski, sweat gravy, brown gravy guy with the bad bars? Do they need him?
That's a really good question. And I think that's a question that a lot of people are going to be asking now. I mean, man, when you think about it, you look at that stat line, that's ridiculous. And I know the Falcons defense is the Falcons defense, but my gosh, when they commit to running the football, they've proven that they can run the football. What are the 2 weeks that they actually committed to running the football? Weeks 1 and weeks 5. What happened on both of those games? James Conner went for over 100, had a dominating performance. The offensive line seemed like they were getting plenty of push. Offensive linemen will tell you they'd rather run block than pass block any day of the week. It was balanced. Today's performance for the Steelers offense was balanced. And when you do it that way, you have 29 attempts, throwing 29 attempts, 29 carries if you count Joshua Dobbs' kneel down. So we'll say 28. Man, that's as balanced as you get in the National Football League. And when they can do that, when they can run the football, when they can use play action, this is a dangerous offense. But to answer your question, the more and more I watch James Conner, the answer is no. I don't feel that they need Le'Veon Bell. And this is very telling. I thought about this during the game today as I was watching James Conner. He had one of a tremendous spin move. He has a great spin move. And I kept on thinking to myself, if there's a silver lining to this Le'Veon Bell cloud that's hovering over the Steelers, to me, it would be the fact that they are getting a great look at what they have in Conner. If let's say Bell sat out week 1 and 2 and then came back, the Steelers really wouldn't know what they have in number 30. Instead, his absence, he's putting out a good season when they commit to running the football, like you said. So I don't think that they do need him. What do you think, Lance?
Let me go even further and make an even more blasphemous statement. Draft a running back next year, one that can complement him, and they may have one in Samuels already. But draft another running back, say 3rd rounder. So you have a running back by committee. You have 2 good backs that can carry the running game. Both guys that can catch it, both guys that can pound it. And they won't miss Le'Veon Bell a bit. They won't miss him at all. So I think they're in a position from what they've seen in this small sample size from James Conner that they don't have to be pressed at all for Le'Veon Bell coming back. If he comes back, great. If he doesn't, it's okay. And when he comes back, you're not starting, young man. We'll work you in the flow and get you into shape so they can have a two-headed monster in the running game towards the end of the season if he comes back, if what he is saying is true. But as you well know, if you ain't told your boss you're coming back, you might not be coming back. But no, moving forward, I don't think they need Le'Veon. I think James Conner at this point, his hands are as good. It wasn't as if Le'Veon was running routes. I mean, they would spread him out, flex him out, but they flex Conner out in this game. He's running good. He's just as good in the passing game. He actually has more juice than burst. There are going to be some runs that aren't blocked well or well defined that Le'Veon could squeeze out more yards with his ability to cut and peek and hesitate. But I'll take James Conner right now.
I would definitely think that if Bell does come back, that he just takes Stephen Ridley's carries right now. And Stephen Ridley finished with 5 carries in the game today. Maybe he would take a couple more or something like that. I'm not sure. But, it's going to be a good talking point, and I'm anxious to see if and when he does return and how the Steelers handle that. But let's go to the receiving stats, because you mentioned James Conner with 4 catches on 4 targets for 75 yards. Antonio Brown had 6 for 101, 2 touchdowns, an average of 16.8, a long of 47. Is a beautiful throw and catch on 13 targets. So, man, that's not good in my opinion. Juju Smith-Schuster had 4 catches for 34 yards, had a beautiful touchdown reception on 4 targets. And then Jesse James, 2 catches for 20 yards, and the rest was just some chump change. If you're talking to Antonio Brown, you're giving a grade. What are you giving him?
I'm going to give him a 3 out of 4. I'll give him a 3.5. I think that some of the misses weren't on him. I think some of the misses were on Ben with his inaccuracy. But that goes to show you, when you talked about it earlier, not Le'Veon, when you talked about it earlier in the show, Jeff, about Antonio Brown being open. In this National Football League, if you target Antonio Brown 13 times and he only has 6 receptions, trust what Jeff says. It's not on Antonio Brown. There is no corner and no secondary in the National Football League where his catch rate should be under 50%. So that's all on the quarterback. And that's the positive thing about this, is that there is room for Ben to play better. A typical AB game is 13 targets, 10 receptions, 140 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So even having a, 3.5 game, 3 game, there was still a lot of meat on the bone for this offense to get, and that's a positive.
Yeah, Roethlisberger just needs to play better, and he needs to hit the open receiver. It's mind-boggling sometimes when you see these throws. And someone said it on Twitter. I can't remember who said it, but if I could look it up, I would say it to give credit. It's not like Roethlisberger's skill set is diminishing. He still has a great arm. He looks like he's in the best shape, at least in his recent career, and he's just not hitting the passes. The one thing I do notice about Roethlisberger is that he's never been good at this. You watch Tom Brady operate. There comes a point where he knows what you're doing before you do it. He's studied enough. He's just knows exactly what defensive look, what blitz you're going to do. Roethlisberger's never been that style of quarterback. So maybe it's the pre-snap reads. He's not, I don't know, maybe he's just reading coverage. It's not there. But he's definitely not finding that Brown. In the second half, I always say this, and I've said it the last 3 or 4 weeks, that you're just waiting for this connection to explode. And maybe this was it. Maybe this was the kind of like the ignition to start the fire. They finished with 101. He gets over 100 for the first time this season, finishes with 2 touchdowns. Hey, at least for this week, everyone's going to be happy. Roethlisberger won't have to answer questions about what's wrong with he and AB. AB should be happy he got his numbers and his statistics. I'm happy because I started them both in my FanDuel league. So there you go. Everyone's happy for this week. But you know what, Lance?
Jeff, I'm not happy. Because I did not start James Conner. I started 3 Falcons against this Steelers defense. That's how much confidence that I had in the Steelers defense. And what do the Steelers do? They say, Rick James in the skit on the Dave Chappelle show. You know what he said. Your couch. Your couch. We'll keep it clean for the
Yeah.
under 17 listeners.
Well, and that's a really good segue to the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. And as I said, they held the Atlanta Falcons to 17 points. And this was an offense that was averaging, I want to say, 29 points a game. Listen to some of these numbers. They finished the day with 6 sacks of the quarterback. TJ Watt ended up with 3 sacks, 3 tackled for loss. He also had a forced fumble, 3 quarterback hits. They scored a touchdown when LJ Fort dove on the ball when Watt sacked Matt Ryan. Quarterback hits for a total were 11. I thought it was a really good outing. Everyone wants to talk about TJ Watt, rightfully so. You know who I want to talk about is Mike Hilton. Boy, what a difference he makes in the lineup. You could tell that for some reason, some way, shape, or form, the Steelers knew that blitzing a cornerback was going to work against this offense. I don't know. Good coaching, I guess. Maybe we should give him some credit. Mike Hilton blitzed off the edge. Seemed like every single time they snapped the ball in the shotgun, and he was getting in there, wreaking havoc. Lance, what were your impressions on the defense? And after Hilton, I want you to talk about the inside linebacker rotation, which was Matakevich and LJ Fort. Matakevich in obvious rundowns and Fort in sub packages.
I'm looking at the live chat, and I'm looking at a comment from Thomas White. Hey, Thomas, I predicted that they would lose. Jeff always predicts they would win, so I do owe you an apology. I thought they were going to get hammered. So yes, I was wrong. And typically, and if you keep listening to the program, Thomas, you will learn that when I pick against them, they typically win. In fact, Jeff encourages that I pick the other team every single week so they will win. So my bad, Thomas, you were right. And TJ Watt played so well, he called me and said, Lance, never call me JJ again. My name is TJ. My name is TJ. Say my name. TJ. Say my name. Hey, man, TJ Watt played outstanding football today. He was all over the place. But, Jeff, so since we talked about the offense, we're talking about the defense. Do you want to give your hero for the offense before we continue to talk about the defense?
Hero for the offense? The easy answer is James Washington, or not James Washington. I was looking at his stat line as I said that. James Conner. If I were to find, it's James Conner. There's no way around it. That's obviously who you have to pick because he just went off. I mean, Roethlisberger, I thought, like we said, he had a 2.75 day out of 4. I mean, what about you? Are you going away from James Conner?
It's James Conner. Anytime a running back almost has 200 yards, from line of scrimmage, I mean, you got to give it to him. He played a fantastic game. So, yes, it would be James Conner. That would be my offensive hero. Who would be your offensive zero?
Offensive zero, I'll go with, I thought the offense played okay today, and the offensive line didn't give up a sack, opened up holes. Roethlisberger could maybe be that zero, but he did end up recovering from that horrible second quarter. I can't think of one. Maybe Chris Boswell as a point after he missed it. I know it's not offense, but that's as close as I got. What do you have?
Yeah, I hate to agree with Chris Boswell. In fact, on Twitter, I wrote, Houston, we have a Boswell problem. But so I will give it to Boswell. I think Boswell is the one kind of sore spot on the offensive side of football. He has to figure that out. No, I'll take that back. It's not going to be Boswell. That interception is Ben. That interception was so bad, it negates a 3-touchdown, 112 rating. It's got to be Ben Roethlisberger. That interception was horrible. So it has to be Ben Roethlisberger. So Boswell will get a break this week.
Yeah. So let's talk defense, man. This is your bread and butter. This is right in your wheelhouse. You love talking defense. You love looking at game film and stuff of that nature. What were your thoughts on the Steelers defense, especially we know TJ Watt played well, but what about the inside linebackers? I thought LJ Fort represented himself nicely. Covering Devontae Freeman out of the backfield is not an easy task. He did that several times today. I got to say that maybe, just maybe, I don't think Matakevich stays, But when Vince Williams is healthy, let's see more LJ Ford on the field. What do you think?
I think that would be a nice adjustment to put LJ Ford in coverage. I think that would be a nice adjustment. I think you could take Bostic off the field and you put LJ Ford there. In terms of defense, I think the plan was sound. I mean, I have to look at it on all 22. I thought they played more two deep coverage looks. And I think Joe Hayden played a well of a game on Julio Jones. And you can't really tell that at times from the television camera. But, when Julio Jones does not have a big day, you got to think that Joe Hayden had something to do with that. I think the 6 of 14 is a little bit shaky on third down, 43%. But I think the stops that they got were key in spots, and they were able to stack some of those spots. The only thing on the defense, and when you get pressure, it makes it tough for the defense. And they got pressure. I think they got 6 sacks in the game. And they also got quite a few quarterback hits. Looking at the game book, if you look at the defensive stats,
7, I think.
They got 6 sacks.
Oh, I'm sorry, 11 quarterback hits.
11. And 11 quarterback hits. That's great amount of pressure on. I think they had, if you add the sacks, that's probably about, let me just do the quick math here in terms of actual pass plays. The 45, you add the 6 sacks, 51. So you're getting a good pressure on 51 pass attempts with 11 hits and 6 sacks. That's 17 plays. That's a good percentage. That's where you want it. And when you look at the distribution of catches, Julio Jones, only 5 catches, 9 targets. Sanu did have the touchdown, but he had only 7 catches on 4 targets, and they did not let Calvin Ridley beat them. And a lot of things what Atlanta was doing is when you take away Julio Jones, teams were loading up on Julio with 2 people and trying to take away Sanu, which left Ridley in one-on-one coverage. And they did a very good job in defending Ridley. Although he had 4 catches and 5 targets, he only hit him for 38 yards. The plan was sound. And let me just say this, Jeff, because every week when the Steelers lose, it's a fire fest. We do it sometimes. Fire Butler, fire Joey, fire this. It's a fire fest. We run polls on our site. Everybody runs polls. Can we give the coaches some credit in this win? Can we give Tomlin some credit? Can we give Keith Butler some credit? And can we give the special teams hero, that gum that Danny Smith was chewing, some credit? That was some Hubba Bubba extra because he was killing that gum. So can we give the gum that Danny Smith was chewing some credit? It's the NFL. It's tough to win. Coaches do their best to prepare their teams every week. Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. But can we give the coaching staff some credit? And if you were to rate this coaching staff, it's a 4 out of 4. They were good in all phases of the game. Offense, defense, special teams, and especially that Hubba Bubba gum that Danny Smith was chewing.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, I've often said that coaches get too much blame when they lose and not enough credit when they win. And if we're going to criticize Tomlin, we're going to criticize Butler and all these other coaches every single week when they lose, I think it's only right, like you said, that we give them credit when they win. And I thought that today's plan was good. No one has ever, and no one should ever, talk about Mike Tomlin not being able to motivate and get his team ready to play, because the man can do just that. You can talk about time management. You can talk about criticisms, in-game adjustments. You can talk about drafting, personnel, all that stuff. But in terms of motivating his team, getting them ready to play, and winning big games and staying in it, that's his MO. And that's one of the reasons why he's not going anywhere. Even if the Steelers would have lost today and maybe tanked the season, he's not going to go anywhere. So, well, you were right, though. When you think about it, all 3 phases were phenomenal. Even Jordan Berry, our buddy, Jordan Berry, had a couple nice punts, pinning them deep. The block punt by Roosevelt Nix was a huge game changer. I thought that all 3 phases represented themselves very well today. So if you're on YouTube right now and you're live, let's go ahead and have some questions. We have a couple. Someone wants to talk about Matthew Thomas, Nathan. And, the thing is about Matthew Thomas is that, yes, he is the athletic, he is the fast linebacker that the Steelers have been missing since Ryan Shazier has been injured. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he is ready to play every down inside linebacker for the Steelers. In my opinion, if you give him this season spot playing or just being in the meetings and getting acclimated, and then in the next season, maybe he's battling for a spot. But I agree. Someone said they wish he would have gotten more time today against the Falcons, but he didn't. You agree with that, Lance? It's. Would you agree with putting talent on the field over preparedness? Because that's exactly what you'd have. Because Matthew Thomas is probably not prepared to step on the field, but he is very talented.
Well, I'll answer the question by saying this, listeners. Would you trust your 13-year-old daughter to drive a car when she's had one lesson? Absolutely not. So it's great to be fast, but you need to know where you're going and what you're doing. So until you do that, you're going to compromise your defense, especially when you're in the middle of the defense. So you can't put a guy out there if he's not ready. He'll just make fast mistakes.
Yeah, I agree. And so the next question that we have here on the live chat is, will Bud Dupree get it together? It's kind of a vague question, yet I think that there's an obvious frustration with the Steelers and that first-round pick in Bud Dupree. You talk about penalties. The penalties continue to haunt this team. And Bud Dupree had 2 illegal hands to the face that continued drives for the Falcons. So, Lance, what are your thoughts on Dupree's game?
Dupree is what he is, an average pass rusher. If you're satisfied with an average pass rusher alongside TJ Watt, then fine. If you want a dominant pass rusher where you have bookends, like Chubb and I'm flubbing on his name, the superior pass rusher in Denver, and Von Miller. If you want superior bookend pass rushers, then no. And I think where the Steelers' defense is moving forward and just how critical it is to get pressure on quarterbacks consistently because of the prolific nature of the passing game in the NFL, you need a better outside linebacker. I think Bud is what he is, an average pass rusher and a guy that's not the most smart or heady player when it comes to football IQ, and a guy that makes the type of mistakes that he makes. So if you're satisfied with that, then it's fine. But no, I think Bud is what he is. I don't know if there's any more upside with Bud Dupree.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Let's go to the next question. See here. Oh, do you think today was just an aberration for James Conner, or do you think he's starting to get comfortable in his role as the Steelers running back?
I think James Conner is a solid running back. I said it earlier in the show. What more can he do? I mean, when they give him the rock, he's productive. Call his number, and he performs. That game today is about as much as you're going to get out of Le'Veon Bell. They just give Le'Veon Bell the rock because Le'Veon has showed consistently that he can be there. Give James Conner the opportunity, and James Conner will produce. We've seen it. I know it's a bad defense in Atlanta, but that defense in Cleveland is very good. They went and held the Ravens to 9 points this week. Give the ball to James Conner, and you will get production.
Yeah, no, we talked about earlier, if the Steelers commit to running the football, he will get you the yards. I think that's just very black and white at this point. I mean, he's a good running back, and people need to remember that before the knee injury in college, which resulted in the cancer diagnosis, which resulted in, him. He was considered a first round draft pick. He had that tag on him coming out of Pitt. Obviously, we know what happened. Steelers take him in the 3rd round. And if he pans out, boy, that talk about a steal for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Someone saying Cam Hayward looked gassed in the game. It was hot. I'm sure a lot of guys were gassed today. I like Isaac's comment. He said, Lance needs to stop rubbing off on me. I'm starting to be nothing but negative about the Steelers. Then again, they've kind of given me a reason to be negative. It's funny you say that, Isaac. Right before we went on the air, I said the same exact thing to Lance. I said, man, I'm watching this team and they have a 17-point lead. I'm thinking, shoot, they're going to blow this. Or I'm thinking 3rd and 13. They'll probably run a screen and get a first down. He's infecting our mind. So it's my job to be the positive person, to see the glass as always half full. Because remember, and Thomas is the one that said this, I picked the Steelers to win this game 38-35. It was not the right score, but I did not pick against them. And I picked the Steelers on multiple platforms. So I picked them in this game, our Wednesday show, the Standard is the Standard, and our preview show on Thursday. So Nick asks, what is your take on the safeties after today for the Steelers, Lance?
I think I just think we all have to slow down a bit and just take it with a grain and be more patient. The NFL is about consistency and stacking wins and playing well every single week. Until they show that, I think the thing we can take away from this game is simply that the potential is there. Now, will they play to that potential every single week? And it's positive, and I'm going to try to make a positive comment. The positive is if they play good football, this is what they can possibly do, or this is what they can do to a good offense. The thing is just about being consistent, being on the same page, and playing well week in and week out. It's about stacking wins. And now they got to be healthy. Hopefully they can get Burnett back. Hayden stays healthy. Your guys stay healthy. But Jeff, tell me, wasn't it weird? There were some weird plays when Hayward ran past
Oh my gosh,
Matt Ryan.
horrible.
I mean, that was weird. I don't know if he was gassed there, but it was like he didn't see him. There was another weird play when Joe Hayden jumped behind Julio Jones when I thought he was going to jump in front of him and get the interception. There was some weird stuff, but overall, the defense played very well. So it's good that the potential is here. Now every week.
Yeah, the consistency, and it's the same on offense. People forget that, yeah, they put up 41 points. 7 of those were on the defensive side, though. But they put up over 30 points. That's awesome. But they still had a quarter where they didn't score any points. This team needs to be more consistent from start to finish. And when you're talking about these games like next week against Cincinnati, you have to put together a 4-quarter performance to win. This was as close, in my opinion, Lance, this was as close as they've gotten to that as a 4-quarter performance. Do you agree with that statement?
Yes, it is. It's the best they've played this year.
Okay. And I think this, to me, this was what I expected coming into the season. I said this on our preview show in terms of how good the Steelers have looked at times and how bad they've looked at times. I've always felt that the mean, the average, and the median there was the best. And for me, I'm like, okay, if they can just get in the middle, that's where this team should live. And that's kind of where it was today. There were some good things, there were some bad things, but the defense, it's going to be bend, don't break. That's the way this style is. Offensively, it's just inconsistent, as I said. What are you laughing at, Lance, over there?
I'm laughing at Steve Hornastash, his comment when he said, I had my screen brightness down and Lance looked like Cedric the Entertainer. Man, I've gotten that so many times. Steve, you're not the first person. I've gotten that I look like Cedric the Entertainer often. I mean, really. I mean, at one point, it was so bad when I lived in Atlanta that I wanted to give autographs because I was just like, look, I wish I could have been able to use it, to make some money off of it. But yes, I have gotten it many times. Steve, you are right on. That's pretty hilarious. That's better than Al Roker.
Well, yes, those when you had the nice little button-up sweater. The cardigan, I think, is what you were wearing. Now, Snowman, he said it's going to snow because Lance is going to be positive.
No, it's going to snow because the Cleveland Browns have 2 wins in the season. That's why it's going to snow.
Yeah. So there you have it. Lance, let's wrap this thing up, put a nice little bow on it. What are your final thoughts on today's game and maybe where this team is going forward? Because we'll talk about that more on our Wednesday show. But what are your thoughts?
Stack wins, baby. Just stack wins. It's time to stack wins. This was a positive win. This was their best performance of the year, and they got it absolutely when they needed it. And they need this type of performance to buoy them as they go on the road to play the Cincinnati Bengals, who are the division leader. You go into Cincinnati next week, you win that game, you go into the bye, and it changes the whole complexion of the season. Now it's about stacking wins, playing consistent. And I think this is going to be a shot in the arm, to use an old cliche for this football team, just to show them that when they're executing, they're on the screws when it comes to their preparation and communication, that this team is the team that they thought. This was a very positive win. And there you go, listeners. I'm getting my positive quota out for the week. Because when I look at some game tape, probably when I look at Cincinnati and some game tape, it'll probably switch. But this is great. The Steelers played a fantastic game. The coaching was good in all phases, special teams, offense, defense, the hubba bubba that Danny Smith was chewing. It was all love today.
Very good. Couldn't have said it better myself. I'm kind of going into shock because Lance is being a little bit too positive. So it's a good point to end the show. So with that said, Steelers win finally at home, 41-17. They winners over the Falcons. They're 2-2-1 as they head into it. And it's going to be a huge matchup next week in Cincinnati. Make sure you check us out. Well, tomorrow night is the Steelers hangover with Brian and Tony. Wednesday night will be the Standards as Standard. Thursday's our preview show, all leading up to the game next Sunday. We'll see you next time on the Steelers postgame.